Everyone, we'll go ahead and get started today. My name is Jason Kruse. I'm the undergraduate engagement librarian at Northwestern University, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Academic Outreach Committee. And I'm joined by Eden Parks, who's also on the committee. She will be backup facilitating and taking notes. Just a couple of nuts and bolts things before we start the discussion. If you just joined the room, we are recording this session. If you are not comfortable being on camera, feel free to mute your video. And we will be posting these videos on the ALA Connect, on the Academic Outreach Committee ALA Connect page for all the sessions. We'll also post the notes that we took. So with that, we'll get the discussion started. Our topic today is remote outreach and engagement, which I'm sure a lot of us are dealing with right now. Moving from typical in-person activities to the online environment. This actually wasn't, we had come up with a topic, I think in January, and we decided to change the topic as we moved into this time period. And because of the sort of the relevancy of what might be happening right now. So just to get started, just so we have a good amount of people here, if you could in the chat box, if you want to type in your name and what institution you're from, just so we have a sense of where everybody's coming from, yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. So for a lot of us, our activities for outreach and engagement typically happen in person. I know that's true for me and the people I work with at Northwestern. And so for us, it's been a little bit of an adjustment. We weren't set up that way. While we did some online activities, we weren't really, our focus was really on the in-person. But that being said, we know that there are many universities who have robust online programs where they might be entirely online, and they might have been doing this in the past. So to get that started, if for those of you who have been doing this work for a long time, doing online outreach and engagement, in the past, I've found success in it, found challenges in it. Does anybody want to share some of their experiences? And everybody has muted, so just feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and talk. As I said, we got about 30 people in the room, so we'll, but we'll try to do our best to kind of avoid talking over each other. But if you have something you want to volunteer, go ahead and just unmute yourself and let us know your experience. Okay. So, so we don't have a lot of success stories just yet. It's not totally unsurprising. I think a lot of us, this is pretty new, and we're sort of just pivoting. One of the major things that we've had to kind of deal with at this point is that something we talked about in the other session earlier this week is that we're sort of at a point where a lot of the students and faculty we're working with are at a point of need. So a lot of the extra things, the fun things, the things that we want them to build awareness about library resources, we're running into having to sort of pivot and really focus on those very specific things they need: class support, finding ebooks, finding other online materials, which for us, we have a pretty robust exam relief efforts. Usually we do National Library Week activities. Those all had to sort of be stopped, put on hold. And so we haven't had a lot of time to really focus on current activities, things that we want to do other than planning for the fall. Has anyone started that discussion yet of fall activities, things that anybody wants to share about things they're thinking about for how to take an in-person orientation? What I imagine is a lot of times in-person orientation for the fall, and moving it to an online platform.
Hey, Jason, this is Karen Howell from USC. We have a wonderful librarian, Crystal Young, who also has been participating in the Tuesday session as well as today's Thursday session, but I went to Tuesday and Wednesday as well as today. I want to start with one observation I had. I think that everybody in our library cohort here did really wonderful work, whether we got a lot of people or not, because we were doing our best to respond. One comment I got from one of our partners is because we had to do our end of semester things so early, it was the beginning of May, so it was really not that many weeks after everybody went away. They were saying maybe what we were offering with our campus partners, all of these wonderful things, were not what people needed at the time. Even though we set our goal to be trying to build a sense of community and trying to help people with their loneliness, a lot of them were more concerned about living situations, about money, about food, about technology problems, a lot of other things. But the other thing I'm thinking of us to be aware of is I believe that a lot of other institutions, but I'd like to test it out with you folks, a lot of them offered pass, no pass, in recognition of students' great anxiety and stress and changed circumstances they were under. At our institution, in response to the student government, you could take your final exams, and once you saw the grade, then you could decide whether you wanted the grade or do pass, no pass. I think that meant that a lot of the students didn't necessarily think in prioritizing where they're going to spend their effort and their time, that if they could get a pass without having to put a lot of effort into research, or if their faculty members were not necessarily emphasizing doing library research, but doing some type of final project based on their experience, writing something about it firsthand, that's not a failing on our part. It's just a change in the circumstance. So in thinking about this for the fall, I noticed that we got more hits on our website from the asynchronous activities that we did, where people maybe popped in afterwards, they stumbled upon it. There was too much social media and too many all of the university reaching out to get everybody's attention. And sometimes I think the students were just mad at the universities, you know? So this is just a point in time. I'm thinking that the best thing for us to do is focus on the fall based on what we can glean from our shared experiences, and do our best to kind of get integrated into whatever the universities are starting up. And I know that means it drives us crazy. I'm still trying to figure out, well, what does that mean? I think most of you are trying to figure out what your institutions are planning to do in the fall. But I would say we focus on trying to think about where our students are at with a lot of confusion, a lot of unknowns. And like I talked with Crystal, it's going to be a first year experience for everybody. Because even if you're a senior coming back and you've been successful, now you're coming back to a really changed environment. And we're all waiting and waiting and waiting. So it seems to me that we should figure out what is our most useful effort, and maybe have some asynchronous short fun things, and also have some really practical things we offer throughout the semester. Maybe you all will have the same thing we do, which I feel like it's going to be a compressed semester. Go back early, finish before Thanksgiving. We're not really sure when finals are going to be. Are finals going to be before they leave for Thanksgiving? Some institutions are doing finals after students leave, which I thought was a little bit, I don't know how they're going to keep students' attention, but I'm not making those types of decisions. So What can I say? I think that we're just looking at what we would normally want to think of as students' needs, and then trying to see through the lens of how it might change because everything is new. Hope that helps a little. At least I hope what I want to do is give everybody a pat on the back that we that we did good things, and that we're going to keep trying to respond to the need. One last thing I will say from listening to the last two sessions is that I think the ones that did get some response was the same thing we did. It was through a personal connection. So maybe we're going to have to think of different ways to reach out. Maybe we're going to have all our librarians reach out to the contacts they had already built up before. Maybe some faculty that they had already reached out to before, maybe some student organizations, whatever it is, and try and sound less institutional. All right, that's my speech.
Thank you, Karen. Those are all really excellent points. And thank you for pointing out the good work that everybody's already doing. I think it is something I've been thinking about a lot, is that as we're talking about it, and even within the library and our administration, there is, it's a lot of talk about, well, not sort of like the challenges of doing this in the online environment. And what a lot of us keep saying is, this is nothing different than we've done for years. That if you've been in the profession, this is, of course, we've had experiences, maybe not on this level where it's exclusively online, but that we've had experiences. And yeah, our campus partners haven't had to do a lot of this. So we're seeing a lot of frustration on their end, which, in turn affects us, people we work with. But, I think we've seen an uptick in all levels of engagement with students and faculty, and really those personal touches. And I really like what you said about this being a first year experience for everyone. That's something that we kind of noticed as well, as we did really basic intro workshops that were just set up for people to come in and listen to some of the things that they changed. I think in one level it was people knew how to use the library. A lot of people already knew how to do things in their way, and they didn't necessarily need to ask about it. Now things just changed even slightly. But in those moments, we were able to create a discussion about things that people, things we had been doing for years and maybe had been promoting that they just weren't aware of. And so I've seen huge, I'm also in addition to engagement work, I'm the sociology librarian, and I've talked to faculty that I've never talked to before, that I email the department every year, and I'm in contact and I talk about all the services. But it wasn't until that point of need where they had to, all the things that they already thought they knew about the library it was slightly different. And now, now I'm having regular conversations. So it has been sort of an unusual byproduct of the situation. Anybody else have any thoughts about, moving forward to the fall quarter? Any activities that people are proud of, and as Karen said, even if attendance isn't super high, that going through these things and creating personal connections are there any activities that people want to talk about that they've done?
I can share something. My name is Jillian Islami. I'm a first-year experience librarian at Texas A&M University. And it's not really sharing anything that we're going to be doing because we're still not sure what we're doing, as everything is so uncertain. But I still consider myself new to Texas A&M. I started at the very end of fall semester last year, and then spring semester was like cut in half. So I feel like there's still a lot for me to learn about what our library does for outreach and everything. But one of the biggest things that the library does at Texas A&M is open house. And it's like the biggest event. Like, they have thousands of students come through during open house. Obviously, that's not going to happen this semester or this upcoming semester because of, social distancing. We can't have 5,000 students in such a small space. So we've been trying to figure out how we can have those create those connections with students that are very important at the very beginning of the semester, and do that in different ways that aren't necessarily online, but have online aspects and components while still being like a face-to-face kind of thing. So we've been brainstorming literally like, here's this plan and here's what we can do if it's online only, or here's how we can do both, or here's how we can do something that's like that but also completely different. So it's a lot of, because everything's so unknown, it's just really hard to really nail down something concrete and be like, this is what we are going to do. And yeah, so not necessarily an answer to your question, but just like a perspective of where we are and how outreach is very complicated at the moment.
Thank you, Jillian. I think a lot of us are in that same boat. The uncertainty can be frustrating, but yeah, I think it's going to take. I don't know if this was before the session talking with Eden or at the beginning, but we're at a point where we've just decided we're going to plan for what it looks like as online only, whether it changes or not, because at least in our case, and I know this isn't the case for everyone, I've been in my job doing engagement stuff for the last 8 years. We have it down pat. If for some reason there's an in-person activity, I can run that, without much prep. But it's this online environment that is, sort of testing the boundaries of, what do we do? Do we make it fun? Do we, as Karen said, like, the needs, addressing the needs at the moment? Is it a mixture of both? And so for us, we're really, we were actually, we were thinking really big right at the beginning. We were like, we can do escape rooms and scavenger hunts and all these kinds of big activities. And what would it look like? And what kind of platforms would we use? And ultimately, we kind of walked it back and said, like, we really need to stick to our learning outcomes that we've established for orientations in general. They haven't changed. We want to make a personal connection with the librarian. That's something we really stress, is all students and faculty have their own personal librarian that they can ask questions for. And that's one thing that we really push. So we're focusing on that. We want to make sure that students know their librarian. So how does that look? How do we get people to get that information? Just the real basics. And I think that's helped put it in a perspective that it might not be as daunting as we really put it out at the beginning. It was, I think maybe for a lot of us, it's, we know the experiences of, if we don't grab them, nobody's going to come. But I think, it's it's great to have fun stuff, but sometimes maybe we just need to stick to the basics, so that they have what they need.
I'll echo and chime in too. So I have sat in on a couple of the other sessions as well. And one of the biggest takeaways I would say so far has been for any of the fun programming that we kind of normally do and draw them in with food. If we move that to an online environment, we're battling Netflix and whatever else on-demand entertainment options students do with the rest of their time when they're not in class. And so whittling out some of the fun and sticking to the outcomes and basics is something we've been discussing as well. But then it's kind of the battle of, well, no one really comes to that when we offer it in person. So what would make them come to that now? And then we're also battling this, if faculty and staff are Zoomed out and webinared out, what are students feeling at that point? And our university at Fort Hays in Kansas, we don't know yet whether or not we'll be online or on campus. We won't know until July. So we are kind of, like Karen said, focusing on networking with other university departments, orientations, to try to just get embedded in whatever we can of what is currently in the works at the university level, because we have no idea how to actually, what format students will be in, and what will typically take place versus what will be a brand new orientation to begin with.
Thank you, Cindy.
Hey, this is John Jackson. I'm at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. I'm the head of outreach. One of the things that I found that's been helpful for us is we've just said, you know what, we don't have to do it in the fall. You know, like we do an open house like Jillian. Actually, I think Jillian, our open house, which we've done for the last couple of years, I think was built based on the one that y'all published about, I think. We just decided, you know what, we can do the open house in the spring. Like, we don't know what the situation is going to be for the fall. We still don't know how in-person campus is going to be. So if we do it in the spring, you know, it's not a big deal. And so that's given us the space to sort of focus on our high priority programs. Like, for example, our faculty speaker series, that's something that we definitely want to continue and try to put into an online format. But trying to do the open house and maintain and achieve those same goals just doesn't seem to work in a virtual environment. So you know what, we're just gonna make space for other programs and move that to the spring. You know, we've theoretically got these students for at least 2 to 4 years, so we could catch them at a later point.
Thanks, John. That's an excellent point. That's something that we've run into as well, and we've already decided that we're going to push things to the winter quarter. Kate posted a question about schools on the quarter system, which makes things challenging just to begin with because it's such a shortened, compressed time period. And that's one of the things that we have kind of done because we're on the quarter system and there's uncertainty. We've just said, we know this is a flagship program that we do every fall. People love it. People come back and do it all 4 years that they're there, but we're going to have to move it. It didn't make sense to try to force it. It's a very space-based activity to get them around the buildings, and so yeah, that's one of the things I think, you know, not just for the quarter systems, although I think we have different challenges there, but just getting it. Sort of prioritizing what makes the most sense. Have others run into that where they've had to really take a step back and prioritize what you're going to do, what things fall, what things need to be kind of pushed to the front?
Hi, Jason. I'm just going to chime in really quickly with a sort of unfortunate example from Towson. In the spring, we had actually planned a really robust series of programming that spanned not only the library, but we were partnered with multiple other departments on campus: education, Center for Student Diversity, and several others, about race in Baltimore. Obviously, right now, this is a topic that needs to be talked about, but most of the programming relied heavily on, like, we're going to fill our campus or auditorium. We're going to fill these spaces to capacity. We have these speakers coming in. We're paying them. This is, you know, really big, partly grant funded. And we decided to postpone everything until fall. And for us, we have our campus has decided to do sort of a hybrid. So some people will come back. Teleworking is strongly encouraged. Students are encouraged, you know, if you're feeling like you have any at-risk people you are in contact with, if you are at risk, don't come to campus. So we probably won't get to do this programming in the fall. So I honestly don't know what we'll do, but it's definitely, I think, something that's weighing on us, because even though it's an important topic, especially right now, to have programming on, it doesn't really seem like, I feel like we're struggling with the fact that the people we need to catch probably aren't going to choose to connect to this type of programming remotely. And students who are interested, we also in our area have realized we have, and I'm sure many of you are facing this as well, students with different equity and access issues, or equity of access issues, just connecting to online outreach and programming. So it's very difficult for us to decide what to do. So I think we've decided we're just going to try and tone it back to bare minimum and hope we can sort of reconvene in the spring as others seem to be doing, because it just seems like all of the programming that we had delayed probably won't get done. And it's just, I think, unfortunate right now, but I don't think any of us have had like a light bulb moment yet about how to move important discussions like this online with all of these other considerations.
Thanks, Eden. Any other thoughts or experiences that people want to share?
I'm happy to give an example. This is Lily at University of North Texas. I am the first year experience librarian as well as the sociology librarian, and I've been getting a couple of interesting requests from students, some student orgs, and I did a online sort of professional development portfolio workshop for one of them, and then another student during a research appointment found out and then wanted something like that. So kind of what I've noticed is that some of the students, they want help with what they are already doing with their orgs or their planning. This is kind of like an untapped area where we can support, because, you know, librarians can definitely find other experts or resources. And I think they just want somebody who's approachable that can just be there. And I don't feel like an authority figure, but like I'm not, you know, 20, and they just want, and, you know, not really intimidating. So I think they just like to have different people to be part of their events. And I think they're also struggling with online programming and engagement and recruiting. So that's been really interesting. And then for the first year experience, like our orientations, we still don't know for August, but I think since in my role, I see all incoming freshmen, and we usually have about 5,000 in 9 sessions. So that I'm afraid to lose that gig, so to speak, but also I don't know how that's going to be possible. So hopefully if we don't do it for fall, we figure something out in the future. But what they asked us to do was record a video, and a lot of people are putting it in YouTube, but they're really at our university, they're requiring like transcriptions or captioning. So I did a really brief one in Panopto, which you can upload captions, and edit those. It is what it is. It's okay. Like I did it like 30 times and I was like, oh, I'm sick of my voice. I don't know how great it is, but it works. They were happy with it. But the complicated thing is they put it in their private Canvas site. So I can't see any like real, I mean, it's hard to track. They didn't want to have it under a login, but whatever, it works for them for the summer orientations. So I think that's what they're doing. We're still trying to figure something out. I met with another group and they want to do a bunch of extra stuff outside of orientations department because they don't want to lose that opportunity. So I'm trying to figure out how to, you know, splice myself or just kind of get us to focus on what we can do. We're in MacGyver mode or MacGruber, whatever, if you're young. But like, we just need to get, I think I'm just really encouraging also the subject librarians to, this is a good time to really like make sure our LibGuides are really up, you know, up to date, because that's really what I'm referring to is I'm just a gateway, you know, to them. Like I'm the first year, I am a sociology, but if you're, you know, the science major, you need to be getting to know your subject librarian. So really trying to build those connections. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. But I'm babbling and I'm looking at the chat. seeing what I'm saying, but anyways, I'm happy to talk about that. But one of the things is really, and I'm wondering with everybody else, like even we say online, but what are the tools the students are using? What's everybody else using? And are you having to teach students or faculty? Because yeah, I'm in your boat too. Maybe it's a sociology thing where I'm like hearing from people who didn't really give me as much of the time of day or whatever. They're new to the university, and you're all of a sudden, you're building those extra connections. So business has been booming. So, and I'm sure with a lot of you, but really are people finding that people are using totally different tools, and are you having to help people? That's kind of something I was kind of curious about with the moving online. So thanks for letting me share my story.
Thank you, Lily. Anyone have any thoughts? Yeah, I think that, Lily, those are really great points. It's something that is sort of the basis for our entire engagement program at Northwestern, is building relationships with campus partners, student organizations included, and trying to really focus on their particular audiences. Early on, we had, actually in February, we had been talking to our student enrichment services, which serves first gen, low income, and DACA students in particular. And we had been talking to them about doing sort of an in-person, just Q&A for students that tend to use their services. Then everything closed up, and we still were able to use that relationship we had been building over the years. And they said, this is actually becoming a big issue right now. These students, we try to support them, but a lot of them are now at home. They don't have stable internet services. They use a lot for our textbooks. We have a small textbook program. We really pushed interlibrary loan. We really pushed course reserves, but a lot of that was, interlibrary loan in particular, a lot of students relied on to get their textbooks, and then that was not possible. So we were able to use that that relationship with student enrichment services to really build these workshops to kind of alleviate a lot of the fears that they weren't going to be able to participate in classes because they couldn't get the books, or multiple ways that they could get the things that they needed, and really reassure them that, I think one of the things that was helpful, we did this for undergraduates, we did it for graduate students, a lot of the things that I was seeing through Zoom, the relief that a lot of these students that we were working with faculty to get as many ebooks available for classes when possible, that faculty were experiencing the same things that they were, that there was a lot of uncertainty. So I think even just like that, answering some of these basic questions that they had, but sort of reassuring them that things are changing, it's going to make things difficult, but, try not to worry about it that much. We're here to help. Feel free to reach out to us if you need specific books. And we had people follow up that said, this is a book I need for my class, and we were able to, get an ebook copy. So I think the personal connection has really been helpful during this time. One of the things that I've noticed that over these discussions is that a lot of the discussion tends to blend. Yeah, I have a very I don't want to say it's a narrow view, but I have a very focused view for engagement in a lot of the work that I do and what that means. And I know it's broader. I know outreach is a term that's a little bit nebulous, and how that what that means. But I have noticed that there's a lot of discussion and talk about its relation to instruction, about its relation to being a subject liaison, how these overlap, where they're overlapping. and especially with instruction versus programs. And I think that in the past we could sort of make a very clear line, or maybe a clearer line on what is considered instruction and what is considered outreach and engagement. But I'm seeing a lot of blurring right now, where even when I'm recording stats on these things, it's like, I don't know if I just did an instruction session or if that was engagement or both, or or what that was. You know, it's not, I'm not seeing the typical kind of going up and standing and or, you know, telling them how to use databases and resources and stuff. It's a little bit of both. And I was wondering if anybody else is experiencing this kind of blending as well.
Jason, this is Karen from USC, and I agree with you. In planning for the fall, Crystal and I have been talking, and we've been thinking that we'll need to talk with our instruction coordinator. And then it's a question of trying to figure out what our respective outcomes are. And, you know, once we figure that out, then we'll have a little more, we hope, more insight in the logistics of how to achieve it. But I agree with you. I think virtually everything blends together. Even our work with our campus partners starts blending together. I mean, we started thinking, what are we offering? Normally, we would have offered a very popular central space on campus. Now everything's online. And do they really need to partner with us? So, you know, I'm thinking very intensely on what is our unique offering in a collaboration. I'm sorry I don't have an answer, but I think I'm validating this kind of exploring and trying to understand what it is online.
Thanks, Karen. Any other thoughts? You know, I think that your point, Karen, about working with campus partners and even that sort of changing and what that looks like. You know, one thing we've tried to push to our campus partners too is that as staff, they are also library users and they can access a lot, which they don't necessarily realize all the time. And so I've actually, some of the the people that I've worked with on campus in the past in a different capacity has like with faculty and students has changed to, well, I don't actually know how to do this through the library. Like I used to know how to do it, or I thought I knew how to do it. And they're like, you know, it's just a different kind of discussion or relationship that we're sort of developing, which I think in part is really good. It's making it so that, you know, one of the things that we pushed was that they could use the library, and I think it's good. It's just, it's a little bit different. It's not what we're totally used to all the time, that having these conversations with people we've worked with for years, and now they are coming to us, and it's research consultations as opposed to planning programs and events. So I'm sort of trying to keep an eye on the chat too. It looks like I've seen some discussion about displays or platforms. It seems like Zoom is a pretty dominant platform right now. I know there are others. Does anybody want to share any ideas or thoughts that they had with using alternate platforms? You know, as it's come up here, Zoom fatigue and screen time fatigue, asynchronous materials. Panopto was mentioned earlier as an option. Is there any other things that people have been using, or any software or different using tools that they commonly use but use them in different ways to sort of build out engagement and outreach?
it's Jillian again. If you don't have like a marketing team, or you come up with your own collateral or whatever for your programming, I think Canva.com is a great way to create promotional and marketing pieces. My words are failing me. Because you don't have to be a graphic designer to make it appealing, because they have all these templates and things like that. I think Canva's great for that, and it can, yeah, Canva's great. Just wanted to promote it, shameless promotion.
Yeah, Canva is it's really easy to use.
Jason, this kind of goes to what you mentioned a couple minutes ago, but of outreach blending with instruction in some ways, just because there does seem to be a need to push more library resources and research help and just that librarian face, since we're all out of a building. So I'll add this to the chat, but the distance library instruction virtual poster session, I've been reviewing that lately, and it's been inspiring both in ways to reach students virtually. Of all of this was created to just reach regular distance students, but now most of our students are all at a distance since we're all from home. So not only have there been a few ideas that you can pull from those different posters, but then some of the posters are represented in formats that are engaging beyond just a video or beyond just a PowerPoint with a voice recording. So there are a few prezzies, a few other different deliverable formats that I've been taking note of too. I don't have any specifics in mind because I haven't been taking extensive notes yet, but I'll share that link to that poster session. Maybe that'll be a source of ideas for others too.
Excellent, Cindy. Thank you. That's a great idea. I think that is that's something that's like sort of been in the back of my mind, is turning to our colleagues that are distance learning librarians who probably have been working with this kind of these kinds of issues for years, and really getting some ideas. Thank you. That's really helpful. Any other thoughts on platforms or tools that people use? One of the things that I brought up the other day, which is something that we're sort of always battling with, is assessment and evaluation of our programs. And I think that it's sort of presenting opportunities for us, because we typically track attendance, we try to get testimonial, but I think that it's always been difficult to quantify a lot of the things that we do, or even you qualify the impact of some of these in-person events. But I wonder, it seems like there might be opportunities, just by virtue of the online environment and being able to get this information in different ways, that we might see more of an opportunity for showing our impact. In one of the ways that my supervisor has pushed a lot of collecting stories and collecting the thank yous that we're getting right now, and really looking at sort of the impact we're making in the moment, to demonstrate to campus like how the library has really reacted to the situation. Does anybody have any ideas for tracking this information, whether it's quantitative or qualitative information, how they're creatively using that to really demonstrate the impact that the library has on the university?
Hey, this is John Jackson again from LMU. We're just putting it into a pretty dead simple spreadsheet. It says who sent the message, a paragraph, sentence or two about what the context is, and then some direct quotes. I mean, we don't want to include entire emails because of privacy and whatnot, but the parts of the email that specifically reference, oh, thank you for getting this film streaming for us. Thank you for coming to meet with my class, that sort of thing. We're just putting them into a spreadsheet. Not quite sure what we're going to do with it at this point, but it's good to collect it. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you, John. I think it had, yeah, that's it, as simple as that. I mean, I think we talked about the last time. We're just, I just file them away. I have like a folder that I keep them in to separate them out.
I've been focusing more on a quantitative perspective of several people have mentioned LibGuides that they've created during this time to have very specific either COVID updates or just more of that instructional support via LibGuides during this time that we're all distanced. And so I've been installing Google Tag Manager and extra Google Analytics in our LibGuides so that you can see if the tabbed boxes actually get clicked as just a small example. And then all the outbound links, you can tag each of those separately too. So it's at a very granular level, but at the same time, that's data that we've always wanted to get to and to start gathering. And now that we're expecting and seeing higher use of website views and LibGuide use, having that data in the future will be helpful for just informing content and structure.
Thank you, Cindy. So we are getting to about the last 10 minutes. I want to be conscious of everybody's time. Are there any things that anybody wants to ask or throw out there, comments, questions, that's something we haven't talked about? Okay, I think we answered all the questions. Okay, well, I see there's a lot of information going on in the chat here. We will be, as I said, this session is being recorded. We are also taking notes, and we're going to grab the transcript of the notes and add anything that was in the chat to our notes. So these links and these ideas will also be included. I want to just thank you to everyone for being here, for participating in the discussion, and we will. Eden, did we? I don't think we have an ALA Connect page link. I'll have to try to grab that. I am going to put in the email for our committee. If you have any additional thoughts, if you have any additional resources that you want to send us, feel free to email us and we will get those added to the notes as well. As I said, the recordings will be uploaded for all 3 sessions. We'll have those on our ALA Connect page. If you, just by registering for these sessions, you will also get the recording sent to you as well. So if there's no last thoughts, thank you everyone, and stay safe, stay healthy, and good luck. If I don't see some, I see familiar faces in here. If I don't see you or talk to you in the next few months, good luck with all your programming, and good luck in the fall.